Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. I shall see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today. Well, I'm not going to put my headphones on because I got a towel on my head, still with the down with the COVID sickness. So if I'm going to definitely mute myself a lot to give a very what's the word? It's not a barking cough. Maybe it's a barking cough. I don't remember coughing. Anyway, neither here nor there. Good evening everyone. Right now on Fawnhallow, it's 11:43 PM on Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. I recorded an episode of Stray today with Thing. It felt like significantly worse than when I recorded the Okami episode, to be perfectly honest, but I don't actually know if that's right or not. What are we going to talk about today? Today we are going to talk about whatever next thing we did on our holiday was. So I talked about Fringe yesterday. What can I talk about today, to be honest? I don't really know. Let's have a sit down. Let's have a look-see. I guess we kind of did a lot of driving, if anything. Well, by we, I mean 2 people on the holiday did a lot of driving, myself not included, because I don't know how to drive yet. It's one of those things where I'm just like, I definitely should learn how to drive at some point, just because it's like a useful skill to have. But it's the sort of thing where, like, when I was younger, it never particularly interested me that much. For one thing, I'm not like into cars or anything. I don't really know the first thing about cars. Cars don't fascinate me in any sort of sense. Not in the sense that I don't appreciate the engineering, I suppose, that goes into them. I do, from like a technical standpoint. But it's awesome, I suppose. But the different brands or whatever, the different models, the things that come out, definitely not something which strikes my fancy. I know, like, some car companies, I could not tell you like almost any car models, to be honest. But like, I know I would recognize car company logos. Not all of them, mind you, but some of them. Anyway, my car knowledge is pretty bad, so I mean, and I'm not going to chalk this all up to like excuses about sort of thing, because I feel like that's detrimental is not the right word, but besides the point. It's just more like an explanation or anything, or my own theorization, because I feel like it's very common when you become, I don't know why I said like that, when can you start learning how to drive? 16? Provisionally? And then 18, I think, is when you can like officially get a license. I think 16, it's not, it might be a provisional license, or it might be like a young license where you need to have someone supervising in the car while you drive. I can't remember. Anyway. At least, reasonably common in school when people turn the age of when you can start getting a license. It must be 16 now I think about it, because I remember people in school talking about it. 18 would be university time, wouldn't it? I feel like it's reasonably common for people to be like, oh, just turned like the age, I can take my exam, I can take a license, I can take a test. I'm gonna go do it. I'm gonna learn lessons and learn how to drive. It feels like a big thing. Certainly, maybe even a bigger thing in America, because of a prevalence of, it's almost like a requirement to get anywhere. In not all places in America, in a lot of places in America, you almost have to learn how to drive because things are so far apart. America's a very sort of car-centric place. Which is, that just kind of is the way it is. I'm not going to pretend I'm like an expert in American culture or anything like that, but that's just like the vibe I get, unless you live in like New York, or what's the place with all the San Francisco, or like all the trams? I'm not actually sure. But at least in the UK, at least in, like London area, is pretty decent when it comes to public transport, all things considered. It's not like perfect, mind you. I'm not saying that, there's no place for cars or anything, but public transport's actually pretty, in my opinion, pretty good in London, especially. As much as people like to rag on about TfL and that sort of thing, and certainly there are like delays here and there, the fact it exists at all, I suppose, in my eyes, is sort of just like, wow, this is the best possible thing, awesome, this rules. But I do understand, the perspective as well, but it's not all that. Mind you, it's not perfect by any means. We're not comparing it to the likes of like Germany and Japan, who apparently have like next level sort of transportation systems. Anyway, not the point. I don't know what the point was, to be honest. I don't even know if I had a point. Yeah, what was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say anymore. Yeah, so like, I think it's pretty common for people to just be like, oh, you know, it's I'm 18, you know, let's learn how to drive and that sort of thing. And certainly no shortage of people did it in our school. But to be fair, like where I went to school, again, public transport was really good. We had like trains, we had buses about the place, and at least the local like town area had most things like contained within a high street. But it's not to say that people didn't learn to drive. You know, there are still people who lived in much more inconvenient places who learning to drive was a huge benefit, etc., for them. And there's still a lot of opportunities, wrong word, a lot of reasons to be able to learn how to drive. If you had to, you know, transport something, you had to go to somewhere particularly specific. Being able to drive is, you know, certainly a boon in that sense. And I don't mean at all to say that like it's not. But I mean, that's just, I suppose, part of the motivation, part of the reasoning why I don't think I ever really got round to learning how to do it. I suppose there never was as strong a motivation for me to do so. But as I get older, I'm just like, you know, there are increasingly more times to do so. And holidays is actually like a pretty big one, you know, as well. I'm not going to say that I'm going to learn to drive and immediately next holiday I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm comfortable enough like driving on roads in a different country. Absolutely not. I don't think anyone would expect that. But, you know, just being able to drive in the first place, you know, part of it is, at least in my mind, is sort of just like, oh, you know, it'd be nice to, you know, not have to make, for people who drive, like, not say that they don't like driving or anything like that, but the fact that they don't have an option except to drive is sort of just like it would be nice that if they didn't have to be ones who had to drive all the time. Not to say that, again, I'm not like trying to take that choice away from them, that they do like driving, but, you know, I'm sure they don't want to drive all the time. And, you know, some of the drives are super long, like 3 hours. Well, okay, I guess 3 hours is probably not very long from an American standpoint. Anyway, so I'm getting like all twisted up for no apparent reason. Long short of it is, we had a lot of like road trip sort of things. And if you're road tripping, you don't know how to drive, and you sit a lot of the time on sort of the sidelines, just sort of chillaxing, talking, and, you know, it's kind of fun, I suppose. At least in my mind, road trips feel kind of like nostalgic in a sense, because it was definitely a very common holiday for me when I was growing up. Go to like beach areas and things like that, have a road trip. Excuse me, and I don't know where I was going with this, like, I'm completely lost my train of thought. Go to a different, you know, like a beachside town. Oh, that's it, caravans, that's what I want to say. We drive around and we do stuff like that. I think it's relatively common, sort of like, it's not in-house, what's a word when you, local holiday or whatever. I can't remember what road is, the word is for when you have a staycation, that's a word. Kind of. Actually, now I think about it, staycation, does that mean you had to stay home? No, staycation just means staying locally, right? Whatever, I don't know. So there was a lot of driving, especially because the place that we stayed, relatively close to Ben Nevis, but very much in the countryside, meaning that a lot of the places were super far away. Like where we were staying, the place that we stayed at, which was a lovely sort of like farm manor. Very accessible as well. Like there's a lot of accessibility concerns put in, which is fantastic. But like the closest town that we had to us was like 20 minutes away. The closest shop we had was like, if you wanted to walk there, was still like half an hour or something. It was like a 10-minute drive away or something though. I can't remember it was something like that off the top of my head. But at one point we were like, oh, I wonder how long it would take to walk there, and we looked and it was like, okay, that's going to take like a really long time, so we're not going to do that. But yeah, like it was a pretty remote, even more like remote by the standards I know and have growing up of like countrysideness. It's just like everything was super far away. So we had many opportunities of like sort of driving around. Like we went to Isle of Skylets at one point, which was a huge amount of driving, just sort of back and forth, to be perfectly honest. But I don't know, like road trips, long sort of drives, very nostalgic for me. Sitting in the back seat of a car, like, I'm trying to remember this one comic I've seen one time of a guy. This is like layers upon layers, I suppose, of weird conversations here, but of a guy having a comic of like this nostalgic feeling, oh, shooting star, of like going through an underpass tunnel and having the orange light sort of like flicker on in the backseat of a car. That is maybe one of the most nostalgic feelings, I think. But that's like nostalgia, I feel like, captured within a bottle. Maybe not the only nostalgia thing, of course, in my life or something, but that's like a distilled feeling of nostalgia of that. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun opportunity, sort of like, I mean, really it was fun just like hanging out with friends. I don't think it's particularly fun sitting in a car for a long time travelling, but it's fun. The destination, I suppose, is fun. As I always say, it's about the destination, not the journey. You might be like, that's inverted. And it is. But I mean, it's kind of true, isn't it? It's not, I don't know many people who'd be like, oh, you know what the most fun part of the entire thing was? But the incredibly long drives. Maybe it was, I don't know. Only 2 people could, or 3 people can really have a commentary on that, to be honest, but yeah. If you're wondering, did we drive up to Scotland? No, we didn't. We rented some cars while we were there, which makes sense. And the cars were pretty decent, as far as I can tell. And again, I don't really know much about cars, not really my place to say. But yeah, just sort of like casual trips. Mixed, company, I suppose, in each of the cars as well. That one was out pure reflex. Sipping on some water. I need to go fill up my bottle in a sec. I'll do that after this. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like, all these sort of, like, fun different things you do on car journeys. You have, like, nice conversations here and there. Back and forth, you sort of just, like, observe the scenery. I feel like, certainly, there's, like, a level of, like, delusion, I suppose. I'm not sure delusion's the right word. Delusional humour, maybe? Which happens when you're in, like, a car for a long time where, like, everything sort of becomes super jokey or interesting. Like in one of the trips, I can't remember what spurned it or whatever, but we made it a joke to just like start chanting bridge as we drove over like a rather notable bridge. I think I was on a trip to the Isle of Skye or something, I can't remember. We just started going bridge, and the bridge was actually super long, and I recorded the video of it, and it's like a minute long of just 4 people in a car just going bridge for really no apparent reason. Obviously you might listen to that and you might go, that's pretty normal, or you might go, that's completely insane or something. It's not really a story which transfers pretty well into conversation, mind you. It's just sort of like, it is what it is. But I suppose the ending part of it, which was like the unhinged part, was on the way back we started being like, oh, we're going to do the same thing on the way back, but we're not going to say bridge this time, we're going to say bridge backwards, which of course is not particularly sayable, but it's like egg isn't it? It's not like bridge was meant to be pronounced backwards, mind you. But it's like things like that, you just have like strange conversations here and there, sometimes you like fall asleep. Hopefully not if you're the driver, mind you. But actually the drivers did say that, but like on like one of the especially long ones, they were like, oh man, definitely started feeling tired. One of them was like, I don't know why I'm telling it. Well, okay, I had like a moment of realization where I was like, I don't know why I'm telling you a story, but I'm just like, that's kind of the entire point of these Animal Crossing things, is the documentation of a mundane, right? I mean, we got like a pit stop and he was like, it's bad, I bought myself a caffeinated Red Bull rather than a decaf one, and I was like, whoa. Got to stay awake then. And the other drivers, I wasn't in the car at this point, said that they were basically like screaming karaoke in the last like hour or something back to make sure that he didn't like fall asleep or something. Now mind you, like never at risk of like actually falling asleep, more just sort of like in my guess, like a sort of like lethargy or something. We drivers are definitely responsible enough to know that if they were like actually going to like fall asleep or actually like tired enough to be a risk, they would probably just like would stop driving or something and actually get some rest in. That's my guess. It's more like fatigue, I suppose, if anything. But yeah, I mean karaoke in cars, a big one as well. Certainly a big thing in one of the cars and compared to the other. I do love karaoke. Karaoke in cars feels a bit weird though. I think I mean, it's not like actually that weird or anything. I was trying to think like why I found it so weird, and I think the actual answer is I don't actually know a lot of the lyrics to like popular songs. When I thought, I know like choruses here and there. Like I think we had like a Spotify playlist or something of like top karaoke songs everyone knows or that sort of thing. Except for I didn't actually know a lot of them, to be completely honest. I was, on reflection, there's actually a lot of songs in popular consciousness, popular media songs, which I don't actually know most of the lyrics of. As I found out, because like there would be a song that will come out and I'd be like, oh yeah, I know this song, and like, oh, and I'd like listen to it and be like, oh, I don't know the verse at all. Like I could get by if I had like the lyrics in front of me, like actual karaoke, like on a scrolling screen or whatever. You might be like, you could have just looked up lyrics, and I'm like, that kind of defeats the point of roadside karaoke, not roadside, carpool karaoke. I'm not James Gordon. Driving karaoke, it's like spontaneous, it's off the cuff, right? And really it's more just about the passion of the entire thing rather than the actual technically getting the exact lyrics right. Well, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe that depends on your perspective. Anyway, long road drivings. That's just kind of the long and short of it. I'm going to round this episode off actually here, you know. I'm doing a bit of shorter episodes while I have a sore throat with COVID, but yeah. Just like long road trips. Karaoke. I don't know what I'm going to title this episode. I don't really know what I spoke about. Anyway, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Adam crossing you. Oh, I didn't even say road trip driving. Highland scenery. Very beautiful. I should probably talk about that at some point. I'm sure I will when I talk about Loch Ness or something. Anyway, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Adam crossing new horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.